Dan, thanks for doing this again, keeping everybody up to date on what's going on. You're, of course, the NRA ILA Director of State and Local Affairs, meaning you oversee all the state lobbyists for the NRA across the nation. And a big one right now, an unfortunate one with last year's off-year election, is Virginia, where the governor, the attorney general, a guy who's okay with or likes to joke around about killing his opponent's children. Looking at that, looking at the legislative session that state is about to enter, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, Frank, number one, thanks for having me. Obviously, we're looking at a very different landscape in Virginia than we've seen under Governor Youngkin Commonwealth, right? It's now we have anti-gun majorities in both chambers and an anti-gun governor. And with some of the newly elected legislators, their focus is going to be on gun control in Virginia this upcoming session, which starts next week. And so NRA members need to be ready to face the threats that we've been so fortunate to have Governor Youngkin veto more than 24 gun bills each year the last couple sessions. We don't have that backstop anymore. And so we're getting prepared to go in and really advocate for our membership.
Yeah, Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger, at one point actually was a gun control activist. At least she volunteered as one. Looking at her platform, she tried to hide it in the last election. We heard about that a lot in America's First Freedom. She was trying to hide it. She didn't want to get the voters out on the freedom issue. But her resume is clear that she is opposed to our right to bear arms. She's talked about signing a lot of anti-gun legislation. So what are you seeing from her? Has she talked more recently about anything upcoming from her administration?
You know, we're concerned that anything that gets to her desk will be signed, right? Um, and so right now, as bills are being pre-filed and filed as we gear up for this session, we're going to go in there and we're going to be meeting with legislators. We're going to start things off really on January 19th. NRA will be there for a Second Amendment rally. Our executive director, John Comerford, will be there to speak. We're going to have members from our grassroots teams to get out and really have a show of force of opposition to any gun control restrictions that the legislature may be considering.
I took a preliminary look at what's going on in the committees. There's already been talking about it and pre-filed before the legislature goes in. And you're looking at allowing lawsuits against firearms manufacturers, legislation on that, ban on 18 to 21-year-old adults from buying firearms, expanding gun-free zones. Who knows what that will mean? More waiting periods. 5-day waiting period is something being talked about, and magazine limits and storage requirements, and the list just goes on all the stuff being talked about already in Virginia.
Yeah, no doubt. And notice what you're seeing in that theme of just the handful of proposals that you mentioned. It's restrictions on law-abiding citizens, right? It's not going after criminal misuse of firearms and really going hard on that. You're seeing things to go after the industry. And one of the bills that we've seen that's pre-filed, Senate Bill 27, is this responsible conduct type legislation, which is meant to open up frivolous type lawsuits against the firearm industry. We've seen this in a handful of states where they're really trying to make it so expensive to operate for these businesses that they want to price out the general public of exercising their right to keep and bear arms. Same thing with gun-free zones, right? Hey, here's a law-abiding citizen who's gone through the proper permitting process, and we want to limit where they carry a firearm when you know that criminals are ignoring these arbitrary boundaries.
Right, John Lott's research, 92% of these mass murders actually target gun-free zones. It's actually there in the manifestos where they talk about it. It's a known thing. Any of the data looking at armed citizens, concealed carriers, and the crimes that they almost never commit, it's less than police officers in studies really digging down into the numbers on these things. Obviously not the problem, but they're being treated as the problem by, this governor and potentially by these legislators.
No doubt. So it's, we're going to see a lot, when you're talking about 24 gun bills that Youngkin vetoed, we're anticipating a lot of those proposals will be back or already back You mentioned the age restriction where they're trying to prevent young adults from exercising their right to keep and bear arms. And we have a lot of active litigation across the country on some of these proposals, and NRA is prepared to file more litigation in the event that things are signed.
Well, before the next election, that'll be the fight, I would imagine. If they pass some of this legislation, taking away the rights of young adults, they're legal adults, take away their Second Amendment rights, going through the litigation process to take them to court on the constitutionality of these kinds of laws. In specific, where's that one nationally? How are the cases proceeding there?
There's a handful of cases out there from Florida on in various different spots. We've had some favorable rulings there, but litigation's slow, right? And so ideally, we're able to beat back some of these proposals before they ever reach a governor's desk. Um, Sometimes when I've gone and talked to our members, I use the example of the magazine case out of California, the Duncan case, and I said that case is almost a decade old at this point because it, started off in then the circuit court and worked its way up and went on bonk. And then the Bruin decision happened and it got kicked back and remanded. And there's been quite a bit of movement there. And then things can stall pending other decisions. And so um, while litigation's a great tool, sometimes it can be slow. And while that litigation's pending, you're right, may be deprived.
Right, but the NRA is very involved in litigation across the country, and I would imagine in Virginia that that would be a tool you might have to use until the next election going forward. But how else could you rally NRA members, for example? You mentioned a freedom rally coming up. What else could they be doing?
Right now, I think that the number one thing is subscribe to the NRA ILA alerts. That's going to be the best way to keep you informed. Follow our social media pages. We will be active there and get involved with grassroots. We have our front lines activists, but being sure to contact your delegate, contact your senator, because they need to hear from you. And while you may look at whoever your representatives are in any given state, those contacts do matter, especially when they're constituent contacts. If they're getting a volume of them, they want to represent their district, right? And they need to hear from you because if you're idle, if you're not engaging, they think that you may be supportive of these types of concepts, and so it's important to call, be respectful, obviously, but let them know so they can know how it's going to impact their constituents, the citizens, the law-abiding people who just want to exercise their rights.
Right, and I would add, it might sound self-serving, but I would add, make sure your NRA membership is active. Uh, Subscribe to the NRA ILA alerts. Um, Go to our various websites to see what's going on in your state, in your backyard. And yeah, make that call, send that email, stay involved because that pressure on legislators, whether it's your state representative, congressman, or your governor, it does matter.
There's no doubt, and what we've seen in some pro gun control type states is really the limiting of testimony when it comes to public hearings. Um,
Yeah.
when you look at the Californias of the world and some other states where they might only allow two witnesses 2 minutes for a proposal that has really broad impact, or they may not allow really any testimony at all. And so those contacts to your legislators, to committee members, et cetera, are that much more important because you may not have an opportunity in a public forum to make your voice heard.
Well, I've got you. I've got a question on that because I've been asked this question a lot over the years, and as a journalist, I've run into it a lot. What does a member of Congress or it might be a state representative? What do they pay attention to most? The emails or the phone calls? How do they categorize them? Are they adding them up? What's your experience in that?
Well, I think each office has in each state or has their own way of handling them. Obviously, there are some legislators that are so set in their beliefs of restricting your Second Amendment freedoms that they disregard them, right? But a lot of them pay attention, right? And they look at constituents, they look at um, phone calls, letters. Obviously, I said be respectful. If you're disrespectful, that could be fodder for the other side, right? And so those contacts, sometimes they're just taking a tally of them, right? I've seen all different mechanisms, and you at times see legislators try and categorize them in a way that benefits whatever position they want to take. And that's why it's important we have overwhelming contacts to oppose these gun restrictions, so that maybe this isn't a talking point for them to say, "Oh, nobody from my district has contacted me," other than supporters of this. They do need to hear from you in opposition.
Agreed. Be the mature person in the room, but be clear, be concise. Tell them you are a civil rights advocate, fights for their freedom. You believe in your freedom. You advocate for your freedom. You talk to your family and friends and stuff about your freedom, and you don't like them when they vote to take away your freedom.
No doubt, and it can happen quickly, right? I mean, we have a very different makeup in Virginia this session, uh, different than it's been in a long time, and without that backstop, I mean, it's really concerning, and we're going to be there. We're going to be present in the committee hearings. We're going to be present in the Capitol. We're going to be present at the rally. We're going to have these grassroots meetings taking place and opportunities to engage. And I encourage everyone out there to engage because it can happen quickly, right? And getting those rights restored is a process. Um, and the next election, while it's close, it's still a long way off on the damage that can be done.
Right. Well, thank you, Dan.
I appreciate your time. Thanks, Frank.